So I have to tell you, it's actually really strange to be back in Fairfax, Virginia, because when I was 20 years old, I was a senior at George Mason University, and I don't ever come back here. But it was my senior year, and I decided to move to New Jersey to follow my boyfriend who had just graduated from Georgetown. And it was the worst mistake I ever made in my life. But the silver lining behind that experience, and there weren't very many, but the silver lining was that I met this guy named Matthias Schuster. And Matthias turned out to be one of the closest, dearest friends I have. He is a German, and he's tall, and he's gorgeous. He's international, and he's a lawyer at the tribunal in The Hague for the UN. He works on things like the Rwanda War Crimes Tribunal and the Yugoslavia War Crimes Tribunal, and his friends are also really gorgeous overachievers. So when he asked me to officiate his wedding in Berlin, I was honored, to say the least, because I have always felt incredibly deficient next to all of his beautiful, smart, Ivy League educated friends. In fact, on more than one occasion, I have wondered if he is my friend purely to fulfill some German requirement, affirmative action, like you must have a brown friend. So I was honored. And just over a month ago, I found myself in Berlin to officiate the wedding. So if you haven't been to Berlin, it's like the Brooklyn of Europe. Okay, you know, it's like people with body piercings and not just tattoos, but lots of face tattoos. They are rebels. And the day that I was to officiate the wedding came, and I consulted the Google. How long will it take me to get to the venue? Oh, 15 minutes. And I'm not gonna lie, Maddie told me that I needed to be at the venue at 3:30 for a 4:30 start time. And I'm not gonna lie and pretend that I am not notoriously late, but I would never, ever be late for my friend's wedding. I mean, that's a really important thing. So I go to the taxi stand with two other guests, friends of mine in tow. Charmine, who's about my height, and she's from Pakistan, and she's wearing her beautiful sari. And Jen, who's, I don't know, like 5'10", you know, 10 inches taller than me, with legs that just don't end, and wearing the dress that complements every inch of those long legs. And we find a taxi. And it's about 3:15. I think I'm doing fine, right? The wedding doesn't start till 4:30. So we get into the taxi, and I say, oh, you know, Dankeschön. We need to go to Potsdamer Platz. And he says, oh, okay, great. We start driving to Potsdamer Platz. And the traffic was pretty heavy, but I wasn't nervous because we had over an hour. And we get to the first turn to head to Potsdamer Platz when we realize the road is closed. Oh, no. Oh, don't worry. Next turn, it's okay. Great, we're gonna get there. We get to the next turn. The road is blocked and the traffic is getting worse. He turns around and he says, tunnel, 5 minutes. Tunnel, 5 minutes. I go, okay. I am getting nervous now. And with each minute that's passing, my level of anxiety is getting a little bit higher. It's about 3:45. I know my friend, who's German, is probably really stressed and trying to explain to his fiance why in the world he would pick the Latina, who is always late, to perform this really important function. And, you know, I call him and I say, I will be there. I will be there by 4:30. Don't worry about it. We're gonna get there. The taxi driver says, Tunnel, 5 minutes. We keep going. And slowly, the time keeps creeping by, and it's about 4:30, and I'm not there. And we're at the tunnel that apparently will be there in 5 minutes, and there's a big sign that says, "Tunnel closed." I'm in traffic. There's these motorcyclists, you know, in different parts. I jump out of the taxi, and what I didn't tell you is what I was wearing. I actually was wearing this off-white dress that my friend told me I looked good in and that it was okay for me to wear even though I wasn't the bride, with a bright pink sash and this big pink fascinator. And for those of you who don't know what a fascinator is, they're very popular with the royal family. And so I jumped out of the taxi and I ran up to a motorcycle driver and I said, "I need to get to a wedding." And of course he thought it was my wedding. "Can you please take me?" And he says, "Oh, I am so sorry. I would take you, but I don't have an extra helmet." So I jump back into the taxi and I call Maddie and I say, "I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do." And he says, "We'll wait. Let me talk to the taxi driver." He starts to talk to the taxi driver, who turns out doesn't even speak German. He's Turkish. But my friend is able to convey to him that he needs to get us as close as possible to wherever the venue, to Potsdamer Platz, and that we would run. He takes us to the large train station, which is like Hoffenhof. And I don't know where I'm going, but I figure, you know what, those Germans speak really good English and someone will explain to me. And I start to run to the train station with Charmaine and Jen in tow when I see this man in front of me who was going to save the day. The rickshaw pedicab driver. I ran up to him and I said, "Excuse me, sir, can you get me to Potsdamer Platz?" And he looks at me, he looks at Jen, he looks at Charmaine, and he says, "Yeah, I can take you there." He was gonna save me. We jumped in. Now this pedicab was only for 2 people, but we jump in, I get my dress there, and you know, Jen is in her dress, and we just throw Charmaine in her sari on top of us, and he starts pedaling, and you can see his calf muscles just working hard. And he starts taking us across the Petty Bridge, through this beautiful park, and slowly I know everything is gonna be okay. But he was working really hard. And Jen said something about having to carry 3 girls, and you know, about a chubby girl, and I said, you know, there are some people who do like chubby girls. And he looks back at me and he says, "Yeah, like me. Maybe I can get a date out of this." You know, he got us there safely, and we gave him a good tip. I jumped out of the pedicab, I ran into the venue, feeling sweaty and gross. I drank my glass of water, I drank the glass of champagne. We lined up, and then I heard our cue. "Go into the chapel and we're gonna get married." And I walked up those marble staircases, the marble staircase. I went one way, others went the other way, and we walked into the Kaisersaal room. And I looked at everyone there, all those beautiful overachievers. But I felt the love. And I walked in, and my friend Matthias walked in, and his amazingly gorgeous fiancé, Garrett, walked in. And I I officiated the wedding, and it was really amazing. And the entire experience of me, new Mexican girl, you know, a Mexican-American girl whose grandfather fought in World War II. None of our grandparents would have ever imagined that we would be in Berlin, officiating a wedding of a man from East Germany to a man from West Germany. And it was a real reminder that no matter what is happening in the world, all the bad stuff, the wars, the violence, the shootings, I really believe we are in a better time, and a time of more love where you know what, we can go there and celebrate the wedding of two men by, you know, people who had been at one point at war against each other. And, you know, when time goes on, things will get better. So at the end, it was probably the second best wedding I've ever been to after my own. And I really felt like, you know, all those feelings of inadequacy that I had had were for no reason at all. Everyone there was really great and wonderful, and it was one of the best experiences I've had in a long time.